Namaste and greetings. I, Riya Rawat, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, प्रभाव एवं प्रभाव एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान नई दिल्ली extend my warmest welcome to everyone joining us for this special web policy talk event titled The Role of Directorate of Municipal Administration and City Governance Towards Developed in Urban India 2047. This online workshop is being organized by the Center of Habitat, Urban and Regional Studies under the series The State Cities, City Conversations and Local Governance to advance meaningful dialogue around urban governance, inclusive and sustainable city development, and municipal reform in India's journey towards Viksit Bharat 2047. Let me briefly introduce our esteemed speakers for today's program. Chair of our program is Professor Chetan Vaidya, former Director, National Institute of Urban Affairs and School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi, and visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI. Our expert panelists include Dr. M. Ramachandran ji, former Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Professor Debolina Kundu ji, Officiating Director, National Institute of Urban Affairs, Mr. Sameer Unhale ji, Joint Commissioner, Department of Municipal Administration, Government of Maharashtra, Urban Practitioner and Visiting Senior Fellow at IMPRI. Dr. Purnima Chauhan ji, IS retired, former Secretary, Government of Himachal Pradesh and former Director, HIPA and Visiting Senior Fellow at IMPRI. We also have Srimati Nancy Sahai ji, IS Director, Directorate of Municipal Administration, Department of Urban Development and Housing, Jharkhand, and Mr. Tikendra Pawar ji, Member, Kerala Urban Policy Commission, former Deputy Mayor, Shimla, and Senior Fellow at IMPRI. We sincerely thank each of our speakers for joining us and sharing their insights on how the Directorate of Municipal Administration can play a transformative role in achieving developed, inclusive, and sustainable cities by 2047 towards Viksit Bharat, Developed India by 2047. To formally commence today's proceedings, I am delighted to invite our chair, Professor Chetan Vaidya ji, former director NIUA and SPA Delhi, and visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI to deliver the chair remarks. A very warm welcome to you, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Rhea, for those kind introduction and background of the webinar. I would really like to thank Arjun and his team and IMPRI for giving an opportunity to moderate and chair this session. This is rather a very dry subject. Director of Municipal Administration is not something which is fashionable to talk, but very crucial role it plays in urban sector. I also thank IMPRI for giving me an opportunity to meet again some of my friends like Dr. Ramchandran, Debolina Kundu, Sameer Unhale, and of course, Tikekar Panawa. And also meet some new friends like Nancy and Purnima ji. It's a very diversified panel. I'm very happy to see a very diversified panel. We are academicians, we are researchers, we are practitioners, we are people who have worked at city level, state level, and national level. So I think it's going to be a very interesting webinar discussion in this particular thing. We must accept that urban sector is going to play a very important role in achieving India's economic goals as well as our climate goals. I think both the places, urban will play a very crucial role. So we have to look at urban from that sector. And within that urban, non-metro cities, I'm using the word non-metro cities, it could be small municipalities, medium-sized municipalities, and even to some extent, smaller metropolis. They all are governed or managed by Director of Municipal Administration at different. This is different at different in various states. There is not a common model, which reflects our federal structure, that we don't have a common model. But it was very interesting to see that in Gujarat, this director is included in the Gujarat Municipal Act. This term and this role is included in the Gujarat Municipal Act. I'm sure it is there in other municipal acts also. But the responsibility and the role of DMA is changed after the 74th constitutional amendment, and particularly with all these urban missions and programs. I mean, 15, 20 years ago, we were never talked about so many programs and projects at the urban level, but starting with JNURM, which was spearheaded by Dr. Ramchandran, and then these 5 missions now, which we see here. I think the role of the DMA, the elephant call, Unale was uses that term, elephant call DMA is becoming very crucial, and we need to understand. And this also has to be understood not only in the context of programs and projects, but also we are trying to introduce number of urban reforms. I think uh, Shri Panwar is here, who has been trying to do it at the state level in Kerala and also at other places. But there are all of you others who have played crucial role in what DM's responsibilities should be and how it could be changed. And I also like to mention, in addition to reform, there is new elephant in this whole environment, and that's what I call as projects and project management units. I think they are also the linkage of DMA of the municipalities with the PMU and the consultants and the municipalities is extremely important. I would now just briefly talk about Gujarat has extended or upgraded the role of DMA, calling it Commissioner of Municipal Administration somewhere in 2018, about 6 or 7 years ago. And at the present, the Commissioner of Municipal Administration, Mrs. Remya Mohan, IS, she also happens to be Managing Director of Gujarat Urban Development Corporation and Gujarat Urban, uh, another one more another mission, Urban Development Mission. And then there is an additional commissioner of DMA who is also CEO of Gujarat Municipal Finance Board. So this is a very strong DMA or Commissioner of Municipal Administration in Gujarat. Their main role is obviously to see that the Municipal Act is implemented properly with rules and regulations. They're also responsible for supervising DPRs for different projects, effective planning of water supply schemes, monitoring of implementation of these schemes, use of information technology, leveraging of information technology, implementation of GCDR, because as we know, GCDR is coming from master plans and town planning scheme, but its implementation is also the responsibility of DMA office and provide guidance for urban development, different local bodies. So this is the kind of background Gujarat is trying to make this relationship. And then we have some 7 or 8 questions. I'll very briefly mention them. We have to talk about relationship between urban local bodies and state government, both administration and politically. Role of DMA in the context of 74th constitutional amendment. Some people in past have suggested that DMA should be removed once the 74th constitutional amendment is there. Then there's also what is the importance of ULBs versus various other state level agencies like Water Supply Board, Transport Corporation, Housing Board, how they interact with each other. What is the role of ULBs in implementing various missions and programs? And how can DMA become a catalyst in implementing urban reforms, in implementing technology, and of course, how does it work at regional level? I mean, the one example I mentioned in Gujarat, where they have 6 uh, deputy DMAs at different levels, covering different districts or different regions. So, what is the role the DMA could play? So, the as mentioned by Ria, I'm going to invite uh, my friend Dr. Debolina Kundu, in charge director of NIUA, to give her opening remarks, and that will be followed by Dr. M. Ramchandran as his inauguration address. He is the former Secretary of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and he was also mentor of many of us for a very long time. We have worked with him for a very long time, and then there will be special remarks by Samir Unhale, and then panel discussion by Purnima ji, Nancy ji, and Mr. Panwa. So that is the kind of thing. And then we, at different times, we may have some questions and we may have some interactions. And at the end of this 2 hours, each one of you, please, whichever points you like, you could cover, but try to suggest the future, in the future context, what DMA's role and responsibilities could be. With that short chairman's remark, Ria, you would like to say, or should I invite Devjan? What is the, how we want to do it?
Sir, I'll just introduce
Please,
Debolina,
please.
ma'am.
Ji, please.
So thank you so much, sir, for setting the tone and highlighting the importance of strengthening municipal institutions for urban transformation. And proceeding ahead with the program, I now invite Professor Debolina Kunduji, Officiating Director, National Institute of Urban Affairs, to deliver the opening remarks. A warm welcome to you, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Hello, am I
Yes,
audible?
yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. Thank you, Chetanji, as chair, for inviting me, and also I'm thankful to IMPRI for inviting me for this session, which is very important. I think the way we are urbanizing, we are currently more than 5,000 statutory towns and 5,000 census towns, with over 500 million people living in urban areas, and we are urbanizing. And the process of urbanizing is basically more and more um, peri-urbanization is happening. Instead of the urban centers expanding in terms of population rise, population increase is happening, but there is more of territorial expansion where rural areas are becoming urban, either in situ or growth of census towns is also happening. So that is one thing which where I feel the Directorate of Municipal Administration has a very key role in terms of town. We do not call them cities, but as and when the census towns get uh, notified as statutory towns, I think the role of municipal Directorate of Municipal Administration takes the front seat. So that is one. The other is when we look at the finances of the towns. What Chetanji initially did remark upon that we there are a plethora of towns and cities of different size classes, and we need to take into cognizance that all towns and cities are not at the same level in terms of their managerial capacities, their financial, the different aspects of urban planning which needs to be initiated. So I believe capacity strengthening of various size classes of towns, that is one of the important areas where every DMA needs to take a front seat. Again, with climate crisis knocking at our doors, I think we not stop there, and the action again lies with the DMA. Again, a strong database is needed when we are talking about planning. So, under the Cities 2.0 program, climate observatories are to be set up, have been set up in a few states, and the others we are trying to set up. So maybe with the climate observatories, the real-time data which is being generated, and also the 100 ICCCs which are already there in our country, we could work very closely. The DMA could work with these
Debolina, did we miss you?
Yeah, I
Ah,
think so.
it's okay. You come.
Am
Please
I
continue.
audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Now,
Please
yes.
continue.
Yes.
I'm sorry, there was some technical error, but
No issue. Please go ahead.
so what I was saying is that with regard to the ICCCs which are already there, and also the climate observatories which are to be set up. The DMAs have a crucial role in synthesizing the data and seeing to it that what is the role of various size classes of towns and cities and how we can synergize on their strong points and also on the finances. How could the small towns be capacitated in raising finances? When we look at the current budget announcements, we know that cities are looked at growth hubs. We are also aiming at creative redevelopment of cities, and we are trying to be financed. The cities are to be financed through the Urban Challenge Fund. So here again, I believe the role of the DMA is very important in trying to understand how do the small towns within the various states contribute to the UCF, to the concept of cities as growth hubs when we look at not only the city per se, but the region as a whole. And how do the parastatals and the urban local bodies, instead of competing, they complement their activities? How can they again synergize on their strong points and work together so that we are on the correct path of forming a good cohort of professionals who would really deliver for the Viksit Bharat. And the two important areas where we need to work is ease of living and ease of doing business. I think cities, if we are looking at cities as economic engines of drivers, then I believe that cities really need to firm up on their finances, and each and every person living in a small town or a big city needs to have access to basic amenities. So ease of living becomes very important, and here again the role of the DMA is very important because they need to not only build the capacities of the professionals but also peer-to-peer learning, because in a state there could be a couple of cities which are doing very well and there could be a dozen of cities which are not doing that well. So how do the learnings, cross-learning happen within the state? And also maybe at a later stage there could be cross learning between across states. So DMAs, they need to also talk to each other from various states. I think there should be some synergy of DMAs across states and also within states. I stop here, and I would also like to mention that I have to go for another meeting. I will listen to the YouTube later, and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Debolina. Your points are very well taken. And I think the issues you raised are this. And we're very also happy to know that NIU is involved with a number of activities, including the growth hubs and the climate observatory. And the last 2 points on ease of living and ease of doing business is very important. We have noted them, and we'll come back to you if you through email or afterwards. Best wishes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, Rhea, please invite Dr. Saab for inauguration address.
I'd like to thank Debolina ma'am for sharing her valuable insights and setting a comprehensive context for today's deliberation. Proceeding ahead with the permission of our chair, I now invite Dr. M. Ramachandranji, former Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, to deliver the inaugural address. We are honored to have you with us today, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Rhea, for that introduction, and nice meeting all old friends, new friends on this platform. When Dr. Arjun mentioned about the topic for today, that is the role of the Directorate of Municipal Administration, I started looking back and thinking, how much of a role does the Directorate have in a state scheme of things? And then Chetan is my old colleague during mission times. One of the first things I did when I joined was to ask him for an urban directory, urban statistical book. I think he succeeded in putting together something and then gave it to me, because I always like to refer to basics. As of today, I don't know whether we have any such publication, though the ministry brings out what is called a handbook of urban statistics. But I don't know, as of today or as of 30th September or so, how many local bodies do we have in the country, category-wise, corporation, municipal councils, town area, and the like. I don't know whether we have it or not, or if one starts compiling, how much time it will take. Why can't we have an annual system of updating this and making this available? That's one of the roles I think the directorate can very well perform, so that that basic data is available. I'm just not referring to just the numbers, but there are so many other factors other than just referring to male population, female population, and the number of schools and things like that. There are various newer factors which need to be reflected in a directory or a reference book of this type, which would be accessible to everyone. These are days of everything going digital. It could be digital, it could be a print copy, but it should be available to people to correlate with the state's urban scheme of things and also one's own town, cities scheme of things. I don't know whether that is available. Chetan, I still recall years back when we went for a workshop or seminar somewhere, one lady participant from somewhere in Tamil Nadu said, I don't have access to the budget of my local body. I hope it has changed today. There is access to the budget of local body, but access is one thing. That will give the raw numbers, this much for salaries, this much for some small program and things like that. But what exactly is happening under that, and what is the progress, what is supposed to be achieved? I don't know whether this is accessible to the city residents in large numbers. So we live in an age where the availability of data itself is not all that great, though there could be variations between states. Some states may be slightly better off, some states may not be. So when we're talking about 28 states and so many union territories, how well are we on this? That is one of the first points. We talk about missions and the like. Missions and the like tend to concentrate on limited number of cities and towns, so they get the benefit. And starting with the urban renewal mission days, we have traveled quite a distance. Earlier, we thought the local bodies themselves could do it. Then it was found not enough, so we moved to a regime where special purpose vehicles come into existence. Whether the special purpose vehicles have been able to deliver better is something which needs to be studied and understood now in the context of things, that is, especially since the smart city mission has come to a close. Has it made a difference? Personally, I think compared to a general scheme of things where everything went through the local body scheme of things, probably it has been slightly better and easier for the special purpose vehicles to take up programs and deliver. So that is one step forward. Now, the follow-up point for that would be, we take up missions and programs of this type. To what extent the states follow up with their own further programs and missions to take it to further cities and towns? I think it's unfortunately missing in our scheme of things, because one depends on central funds to a large extent. Once the central funding is over, then the state continues to live with the cities and towns the way they are. Chetan, is it difficult to hear for you? Is my voice okay? Okay, right. So that's another thing. I had hoped the Smart City Mission platform would have helped states to tap the strength built as far as implementation is concerned, and they could have leveraged it, took advantage of the capacity created, and used it for other cities and towns. I don't see much happening, and I don't see much of an enhancement as far as the budgetary allocation for the remaining cities is concerned, to make them smart, to make them better, or to improve whatever basics are to be provided. The question is, where does the Directorate of Local Bodies, Directorate of Urban Governance come in all this? Since I've worked in the state scheme of things, I'm familiar with the system where Gujarat is something which Chetan mentioned is something different as far as these ideas, programs are concerned, but there are very many states where the directorate just exists. They get an annual allocation and they focus mostly on distribution of salaries and funds received and collecting some data, and probably to some extent the audit functions. So they remain more or less very routine regulatory. How many urban directorates in our country would have taken the lead to have new programs, to have new approaches, to upgrade the cities, and would they have succeeded in getting funds allocated by the state governments through the state budget for improving things? That's a question also which needs to be addressed. I know I'm addressing an audience who would listen to all these things. They probably would 100% agree with what is stated here. But then the question is, what can the directorate functionaries do in bettering things or bringing about improvements? That is what is important. That's where probably the secretaries of the department would play a more active role in strengthening the directorates in terms of capacity. Now, many directorates or almost all the directorates would have regular staff, some deputy directors, joint directors, and the like. I don't know when it comes to specialized areas like water management, if it is in their domain, waste management to the extent they are relevant, or the various other issues which have been listed for today's discussions, whether it is climate change, whether it is pollution control and aspects like that. Flooding, it's a big concept. Even big cities like Chennai, Chandigarh, I think recently also had to face the flood fury. So where do the cities stand? Where can we find the data or information from that concerned local body only? Or is there a statewide access to data possible, and is there a statewide strategy available? Again, in the context of the Swachh Bharat mission and the like, before that, what we had taken up for the National Urban Sanitation Policy, had wanted the states to come up with what is called a total plan for reduction of solid waste, disposal of waste, and increasingly reaching a situation where the waste generated is much less, or the generators, the producers themselves take care of the waste generated and disposal arrangements and things like that. But even now, I don't think that's a perfect situation. We have brought about improvements. The missions have helped a lot. So the question is it possible to have what state governments to have a relook as to what should the role of the directorate be? I think that is critical. We have large number of directorates. When one looks at the state scheme of things, the Directorate of Local Self-Government or Directorate of Urban Bodies is one among the, I don't know what number of directorates, 30, 40, 50, 60 directorates. But for the state, it is one among the many. So the initiative will have to come from within. The director itself probably will have to take the lead to have the attention of the state government drawn as to what changes can be brought about. And I don't think changes are possible without bringing in specialized elements in the scheme of things. The routine way of promotions and positioning, I'm not against that. That alone may not be sufficient to have an updated, well-prepared urban directorate to contribute to the state scheme of things. So the question is, when we talk about Viksit Bharat 2047, also can we think in terms of a Viksit Shimla or a Viksit Chandigarh or a Viksit Madurai or whatever it is? If that is so, if we start thinking about it, can the directorate take the lead and facilitate at each city town level to look at what would Viksit so-and-so in 2047 mean? What all would need to be done? How do we reach that goal? And what can we do over a period of time? Ideally, I would think the directorates can be entrusted with the task of taking this up for the entire state, whatever number of local bodies. I know in a state like UP, it will be very difficult, some 600 or 800 local bodies or so, but it should be possible. Anything is possible in today's scheme of things. It should be possible to involve each city in generating thoughts about this. And I think the next 1 year or so, 2016 or up to 2026 or 27 or so, could be the time which could be utilized for each city to look at what would my city look like, Viksit city look like, and what all do I need to do. So it would be a wish list. So after having this wish list, how do we make efforts to get it implemented? That would be yet another challenge. So these are all possibilities before the directorates which could be taken up. And I think it's time we take up, because Viksit Bharat is a whole sort of thing. It consists of various elements, in which a Viksit city also would be an element. There will be various other elements also. So how do we make that happen, and what can be done about it? I was so impressed with Chetanji, just a reference. We have lived in the city of Kochi. The mayor had invited me. There is something called a Samruddhi, a venture of the city corporation itself, where food is, everyday food is made available, and they make it available. Earlier they started at 10 rupee per meal. Now it has gone up to 20 rupee per meal, but they cannot balance it out. So they depend on CSR and such other funds to meet the expenditure. But 200 plus women members of the Kudumbashree are working there, and they are producing clean, good food. So these are all the different types of beginnings. I mentioned about, I've seen on the streets of Bangalore, the large number of people who stand on the roadside for morning breakfast, they have a quick, good breakfast and then rush to work. And again, Chetan, you may remember when we travel abroad, we see people start at 7 in the morning to go to work with 1 cup of coffee or so in the hand, and that is the sort of breakfast for them to start with. So these are all the different types of beginnings. And what a difference it can make. One cannot go and sit in a cafeteria or a hotel every time for whatever one wants. Especially when time is short and when you are rushing to work and things like that, or during lunch breaks for all these techies and the like, there has to be avenues available. So these are the different types of beginnings which have to happen in our cities and towns. I just mentioned one example here. There are various other ways of looking at things. Transport would be another issue. We increasingly keep on saying that we cannot depend on personalized modes of transport. But then what are the options? How are the options working out? Is public transport really reaching every nook and corner of the city or the town? Do we have the required frequency? Are we comfortable with public transport? Are we in a position where we can switch to public transport? These are again challenging agendas. I don't know whether any directorate in our country has the required strength to look at urban transport as a subject and how a solution can be worked out. We talk about these capacities need to be enhanced. But enhancing capacity, as I see, is not an easy task because anything and everything requires allocation of funds. It's a question of how best we can work with institutions and the like. There are any number of good institutions, any number of educational institutions. We can involve such students who are interested in this, and they want to look for opportunities. They probably want a certificate that they had worked with X or Y. So that could be another channel which the state system can ask the directorate to work with so that what requires for the city is produced and that is taken to a stage where it can be implemented. So the dialogue process, I think, would be very, very, very important. Participation of stakeholders would be important in the scheme of things, and we are looking at probably a 20-year window. It can be even earlier than that. The capacities or strength generated, how better to utilize that rather than bind them up. I mean, I find the smart city entities, SPVs, are almost at the stage of being wound up. Their strengths are not being utilized for other cities and towns by the states themselves. So there is a huge potential available there as well. Specialized knowledge, that's one thing I emphasized. Empowering local bodies, a subject we have been talking about. Chetan and myself, we have talked about for 20 years almost. And another 20 years, we should not just be talking about empowering. The empowerment has to happen. How can that happen? That is also something which the directorate, being the technical hand of a ministry, can come forward and facilitate. And routine statements are probably not enough. Giving just a note will not be enough. How to make it work and how to empower at the same time, how to help the local bodies to generate more resources. That also becomes important in the scheme of things. And I think that will be one major step as far as moving towards a Viksit situation is concerned, because everything cannot be passed on from state down to the local bodies. And in the local bodies also, I mean, we all have seen it. I always say Mumbai is one extreme example. Rishikesh also would be at the other extreme. Now, Rishikesh would depend on whatever they can do at their end, or a Nahan, or compared to a Shimla and things like that. No, there are variations. So we don't really cater to the variations and requirements and how best to facilitate. I know these things are easier said than done, but it's time we think seriously about these and act on this. In that, again, what role can the directorate play? Earlier, we talked about, in the context of empowerment, taking it down to the area sabha level. Chetan, you remember Hyderabad, Andhra took some initiative to have area sabhas, but one hasn't heard anything beyond that. So area sabhas, or at the polling booth level, to have citizen participation is something again critical, because it's not enough to say that citizens should participate. Citizens should be able to participate. It should be responsible participation, and there could be contributions coming from citizens. I don't think very many citizens will shy away from that, provided the right platform becomes available and they can perform and deliver. And that whole concept of my city, my pride can really work if that is facilitated. So we have to see how much we can bring the directorate, the system, closer to the people, and encourage people to participate in the process so that the directorate also feels confident and satisfied that the mission before them is really taken forward and it works differently in today's scheme of things. Again, I emphasize this point, digital is something different. The methods of working have changed a lot. We have to think in terms of moving faster, bringing in more participation in all this process. So how can that be done? So I don't know whether this frequent shift of directors or commissioners also becomes relevant in this context. So have a 3-year tenure at least, give a mandate. I recall during my state days, I had initiated the idea of each department each year should look at what will my directorate do during this financial year. 2-3 things. List it, work towards it, and at the end of year have a system whereby you take stock of which department really achieved what they said and which did it in the most efficient way. There's sort of a competitive spirit in states also. That also would become relevant and important in the scheme of things because gone are the days when we could just be a figurehead, a director, draw our salaries, or for the entire system distribute salaries, and that's it, and a 10 to 5 sort of job. So it should be, again, performance oriented. Probably each year, each directorate can think in terms of what all changes shall I try to bring about during this year. Everything may not be achieved, but there are certain achievables also. So within achievables, what has each directorate been able to achieve? That should be taken stock of at the end of year. So we will have to bring in these competitive elements in tune with today's scheme of things so that we move away from the routine way of doing things and move to a system where we work towards a larger goal. And in that attempt to reach the larger goal, there are steps, maybe on a yearly basis, 3-yearly basis, whatever it is. So that's all I wanted to state in this context at this stage. I think that should be more than enough. I do not have any new input to provide. I can only collect my thoughts, compile them and place it before the audience for their consideration. And I think if this workshop becomes a platform to suggest to state governments what can be done, what needs to be done, I think that will be a good first step forward as far as strengthening the directorate's role is concerned and giving a proper opportunity for the directorates in the states is concerned. Of course, in the process, taking into account where does Maharashtra's or Gujarat's directorate stand and where does Meghalaya's or Jharkhand's directorate stand, one has to take note of that as well. So again, we used to say one size does not fit everyone. So we have to look into the specific situation and try to bring about changes and suggest changes. And I think that will become very critical and important. Thank you for inviting me and thank you for this opportunity. Over to you, back to you, Lance.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sab. I think that is very useful. You made some 10 to 12 points, which are very important for DMA. Most important, I felt, was director itself has to take initiative to develop Viksit cities with participation of people, with involvement of the citizens and education institutes, where the students are very keenly interested in participation. And how do we make DMA from just looking at administration or rule-based kind of review and supervision, then becoming a dynamic institute to initiate reforms and changes at the urban level, what we are talking of Viksit Bharat. So thank you so much, sir. If there is any questions for Dr. Saab, I think is there a way? Riva, have we already got some questions in the chat box? Or any
We
of the
haven't got
panelists?
any questions yet, but we'll conduct a quick Q&A session if time allows towards the end of the session.
Okay, fine. So I hand over back to you, Riyaji, and then we can invite Shri Samir for the...
No, I would like to, because I have to go, Professor.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay,
Yes, sir.
Panwar. Yeah,
Dr.
please.
Samir, please wait for some time.
Yes, Panwar sir, you're most welcome. Riya, you could just invite him.
Yes,
huh,
yes.
with his background.
So thank you so much, sir, for the insightful address and for offering such an in-depth perspective on local initiatives, decentralization, municipal reform, and administrative leadership. I now invite Mr. Dikendra Bawarji, member, Kerala Urban Policy Commission and former Deputy Mayor Shimla, to share his remarks. A warm welcome to you, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ria. I hope I'm audible there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Professor Chetan, Ramchandranji, Ma'am Purnima, NCG, Samis Nadesa, my great friend, of course, all those who are there in the IMPRI. I don't know what should I be speaking about because my guru, Professor Chetan Vaidya, is sitting there right across the board. Well, but I think I'll not take more than 4 or 5 minutes, Professor Chetan. And I may be quite different to what all the other speakers are saying. And I'll also try to bring in some of my experiences while working 2 years in the Kerala Urban Commission and bringing out major disruption, the whole set of urban governance policies. First, whether Professor Chetan Viksit or non-Viksit 2047, I mean, but Bharat, that is India, 2047, we are going to hold the largest number of urban Homo sapiens of the world. The largest number of Homo sapiens will be Indian. So let's accept that fact. And as Ma'am Debolina was pointing out, I think it's not just 10,000, but there are more than 30,000 settlements, which for all good and bad reasons are. But unlike Professor Chetan, as you know, I mean, it's the urbanization which is not driven by industrialization. It's driven by pauperization. So it's a push from rural to urban and urban to urban. And how do I foresee, 25 years down the line, is that not much change is going to happen. And so there, the third element is that it's not a static urbanization that we witness. So people come back, and last night I was in Delhi, and the taxi driver that I took to the airport was from Jharkhand, Bihar. And he's already booked his tickets because Chhat is going to be the biggest festival in Bihar. So they will go back. Whether 25 years henceforth, how do we visualize? So I think that's also going to continue. So it's a continuum. It's a rural-urban continuum, or like in Kerala, we have an urban continuum. So that also, I think, one of the propositions that I would like to make. Then the fourth element is that, of course, cities are going to be where massive economic activities are taking place. But if you see the migration patterns, what we've seen, that this is the third great Indian migration. The first one took place to the east, the Marwadis and all shifted south, then to the north and the west. And this is the great Indian migration taking place to the south because of various reasons. So there's a great push, and if one has to substantiate that, I think one must read Chinmay Thumbai's India Moving work. This is a phenomenal work. Just in Kerala, why I'm pointing out, Dr. Ramchandran knows, in Kerala, we have 4 to 4.5 billion people who are in migrants. Bihar, all. So when we were envisioning the whole process of urban governance, we couldn't minus that because that is almost 70%, Ma'am Purnima, our population. And of course, similar number goes out as so. That's the fun we make of Malayalis, Professor Ramchandran. Don't mind that. You bring money in dollars and then give money in rupees to our. So that phenomena also, I think, is important. Now, in these given circumstances and situations, I think it's better to get rid of the Directorate of Municipal, because I do not see a future of the Directorate, because we are already obsessed with the bureaucratic 73rd, 74th Constitutional Amendment actually brought in a major disruption, that it has to be people's governance. And people's governance meant that, very bottom-up approach, planning processes. So planning is a key element for our sustainable development, or for Viksit Bharat, whatever. Unfortunately, that planning is still not, the institution of planning is still not either with the Directorate of Municipal Administration or the city governments. So the best way how I see more secure futures, like Dr. Ramchandran was pointing out, water, sanitation. I mean, just today, I think I saw some videos of cricket players moving around in a city in Delhi, and putting a handkerchief on their nose because our Indian cities are smelling just like it. Go to any town, any city in the country. So there's fundamentally wrong that we have done. I do not want to dwell on that right. So we are already loaded with this. So it's not municipal administration, Chetan, that I foresee as a future. It's municipal governance. And the municipal governance cannot be divorced from this continuum. So how does the municipal governance from the municipality, from the precincts of the municipality, geographical precincts, also talk to the peri-urbans and also talk to the rural panchayats? How do we foresee it? So this is something that we have actually tried to work out. And this is something that we have actually made our formulations in the Kerala Urban Policy Commission. And October last week, I think the cabinet is going to approve it. So it will become, I think there will be some 120 or 130 legislative orders that have to come to ensure that, some of the changes are brought. So what does it mean? And we have the 74th Constitutional Amendment. And then, as Dr. Ramachandran was pointing out, in the last 30 years, with this sheer obsession of understanding cities to be some centers to attract, investments, and since the bottom-up approach that we envisioned was unable to do it, so we loaded it with strong bureaucratic impulses, and we thought that's how it's going to happen. And I remember one of my guru in urban governance, Professor Ramachandran, who scripted the 74th Constitutional Amendment, saying that, Tikender, do you know what is a smart city SPV like? I said, tell me, sir. He said, it's like writing an obituary of the 74th Constitution. So, because you completely robbed the municipal governance of the SPVs. So, do I foresee SPVs in some bureaucratic hands or in some technical hands to be guiding us, steering us for another 25 years? I think that would be a disaster. It's already a disaster. No one is owning the smart cities after 10 years of its journey. So what do I propose? If you ask me that honest question, what I think the first thing is that let cities and local governance institutions be empowered. And when I say empowered, it doesn't mean that you minus the federal structure that we have under the Indian Constitution, because I don't see that happening. Federal structure getting diluted, and all of a sudden cities and local governments getting empowered. I do not see that because of the nuances that we have of political governance. So what do we do that? Under the 74th Constitutional Amendment, we have two major institutions. And there's a third one that we have recommended for the Kerala. But before I dwell on that, I'll take maybe 2 or 3 minutes to dwell on that. What I need to suggest is that we also ought to ask our provincial governments that, for heaven's sake, please find out the settlement patterns. How are the settlement patterns going to emerge in another 20 or 25 years? We do not know. Whether, as I have said, it's a great Indian migration to the south. But what about the cities in the north? What about, these processes that are taking place? We do not know how many people more are going to be added to Shimla Man. We do not know that. How many more people are going to be added to Solan or to any other town? So Kerala, we've given this demographic pattern they asked us for 25 years. We've given them for 100 years. I can tell you right away, right here, though it will be adopted in the cabinet soon, that just 19 clusters in Kerala, and which will be urban agglomerations. So urban agglomerations are going to be one of the cornerstones of municipal governance. So what would be the statutory role of urban governance is, I think, something very important. Just 19 urban agglomerations will be holding 90%, Professor Chetan, 90% of Kerala's population. This is something I cannot say about Tamil Nadu. I think that's one of the most fundamental, that we cannot entrust on the Directorate of Municipal Administration. So you have to bring in a basic fundamental departure, disruption, if you talk about Viksit Bharat or sustainable India. The second element that we propose, and that's I'm completely obsessed with, and that was also the spirit of the 74th Constitutional Amendment, because you were part and parcel of when these processes is who does the planning? So where is the plan going to take place? So I go back to the two major institutions recommended by the 74th Constitution. One which we need to push very aggressively, not the Directorate of Municipal Administration, but the MPCC, the Metropolitan Planning Committees, and the DPCs. Because of certain contradictions that emerge, the DPCs being heavily dominated by rural local bodies and not by urban local bodies. So we need to think of some kind of nuanced approach. How do we, but if you have an MPCC, so then the MPCC, role of the MPCC has to be like quite wide. It must incorporate the role of planning. Planning process, when I say role of planning, then the directorate planning, because this is what we have recommended, has to shift from Trivandrum in Kerala, or for that matter from Mumbai, to these MPCCs, which means you require a hell lot of people to be incorporated into MPCCs. So that's the first element departure that you need to do. Unfortunately, if we do not foresee that, and then strengthen this within the MPCC, within the larger, and then this interface between the MPCC and the peri-urbans, if at all there are, and the interface between the MPCC and the rural local bodies, that also we have suggested. But I think that's how I foresee. How do we talk to each other? We think someone sitting in Trivandrum or someone sitting in Shimla will be talking and resolving the issues. They cannot resolve the issues because of let me tell you a very funny anecdote, Professor Chetan. When I was in Varanasi, now both the mayor and the MLA were from BJP, the same party. And they literally had a fight over the discussion because the Varanasi MLA, who was like beyond the municipal corporation, said, "You are dumping your shit on my head." But the mayor said, "Look, there's no other way." So what are the nuanced approaches that we have to look? I think that governance element, directorate, is completely incompetent, insufficient. And of course, not the political will. To me, I think it's a unleashing of the political processes that have to take place. So I think planning is one of the key. The second element in this entire process, how I foresee, and that this is something that we've taken a very strong exception of, is that if data is going to be an enabler for another 25 years, this is the fourth industrial revolution, and the kind of data penetration that we are having very fast. So blockchains, SPVs, now that's, Professor Ramchandran, we have recommended SPVs, but SPVs under the municipal governance, not diverse from the municipal. So what about blockchains? Who are going to be the repository of this? So a digital observatory or a town hall observatory. So digital observatory you can have at the state level, but once again under democratic. But at the city level, and that's where we have suggested that there has to be 3 major advisors to the municipal government. Let's start with the larger municipal corporations first. One is the climate advisor, another one is a digital advisor, and a third one is the planning advisor. Because when we say planning advisor, Professor Chetan, there are hundreds set of issues that need to be planned. But how do we prioritize it? What is the tool? So I think that professionalization, and lastly that I want to say, of course, there are many things that I would like to speak about, is about re-envisioning the governance system. When I say re-envisioning, we have to get rid of, so we've suggested to get rid of the commissionerate and instead have a chief executive in this. So when we say a chief executive, we've layered that a certain level of bureaucratic, some secretary level officer, but to be appointed for 5 years, and the term to be coterminous to the term of the municipal council. And at the same time, to be selected by 3 members, the minister, mayor, and the principal secretary or the additional chief secretary of local select. So that there is ample time for the person. And then, of course, that's something that the bureaucracy of Kerala is buying very fast, because then they're saying, okay, once you have a chief executive of Kochi, then the person can go to Europe and serve abroad as well. So that's, and of course, you know how these things are. But at the same time, also a city cabinet which works exactly like your state cabinet. So the chief executive works like the chief secretary. Without these disruptions, Professor Chetan, but the greatness of Kerala is that there is strong political appetite. And when I say political appetite, it's left or right, both have that appetite. And I'm so happy that I think the processes have already reached. Last, but not the least is, because you have this huge migration coming in, how do processes incorporate these migration processes? So we had like, and if you ask me, Kerala, which Dr. Ramchandran was pointing out, is something where for them the theater of governance is streets. So we've tried to strengthen the theater of governance within the street. Of course, moving from ward sabhas to aisle sabhas, because ward sabhas are meaningless. If you have some 50,000 people in a ward, it doesn't mean any sense. So we've given them aisle sabhas, not more than 100 neighborhood houses to form, and statutory provisions for that. But then there is also strong alienation of the migrant people. That it is there where we have recommended 3 councils to the city council, which will be elected by the people, by different sections, and where the city cabinet would be talking to these councils. The first is City Business Council, so that local economic development issues are taken care of. We do not know because we do not even talk to our business people in the cities. We think the drivers are somewhere else, whereas there are local growth drivers as well. The second is Citizens Council, where you have professionals. Dr. Punima is here. I don't know whether after her retirement, anyone asked her, to support, help. I mean, she would have been a great support to the. So, so the Citizens Council with professionals, doctors, and lastly, the Workers Council. So that is where I think we bring in this whole element and the face of, because if 90% of the people are going to get employed informally, then your ward sabhas, aisle sabhas, neighborhood sabhas, because they lose 1 day of salary. So this whole workers' council amongst them, and then they are talking to, which means the whole idea is to make them co-producers in this entire gamut of urbanization. And I think I rest. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your engaging and thought-provoking reflections on migration and settlement patterns, the importance of planning for sustainable development, and municipal governance. I'd now like to ask Chetan, sir, if he has any remarks to add or share. Sir, your mic is on mute.
The examples you've given from the Kerala State Policy Commissions, what it has proposed, and if it can succeed, it should first succeed in Kerala, I think. Something, because they already have a very strong decentralization. They also have this people's budgeting, where about 30-40% of budgets happen through the local governments. I mean, the distinction urban-rural is not there, as you mentioned so much. And also they have strong executive mayors. There is no commissioner in the municipal corporation. They are called secretaries. So it's very nice to hear this, how much of this could be accepted. And recently there was a conference in Kerala, urban conclave, which I kept tracking the various things, and we look forward for what happens next. Thank you so much for your inputs. And what we have understood is that DMA should be removed, as you have said. Thank you. Ria, please go ahead with this now.
And
for
if
the
you
panel
could just
discussion.
allow me, Professor Chetan, because
yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ria, panel discussion.
Yes, sir. I now invite Srimati Nancy.
Mr. Samir Onale for his special remarks.
Yeah, so ma'am has requested to go first, sir.
Okay.
So I now invite Srimati Nancy Sahaiji, IS, Directorate of Municipal Administration, Department of Urban Development and Housing, Jharkhand, to share her perspectives. Welcome, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ria, and very good afternoon to all of you, the esteemed speakers, respected sirs, ma'ams, and colleagues. I am Nancy Sahai. I'm a 2014 batch IS officer in Jharkhand, and I have recently joined as the director of the Municipal Administration Directorate in Jharkhand. So it's fairly a very new assignment for me. I have worked as a district collector in 2 districts of Jharkhand, but as a specific role of the municipal administration, I have just spent 3 months in the directorate. So whatever has been talked of as yet, and whatever has been spoken It has been a very good eye opener. It has been a very good learning for me personally. So I'm very grateful to all these speakers, to everyone out there. And first of all, I extend my heartfelt thank you to IMPRI and the organizers for having me here as a panelist. Now, because the topic where we have been asked to speak is about the role of DMA and the roadmap for reimagining urban governance. And specifically, because I'm representing Jharkhand, I would just like to make a few points with respect to the Vision 2047 for Jharkhand, as in what, as a state, we have been planning and how we plan to go ahead and move forward. So I have basically divided my speech into briefly four parts. Firstly, I would like to very briefly speak about the exact role of DMA, what are the responsibilities the DMA is carrying out in the state of Jharkhand. There are very few specific challenges in context of our state, which as DMA or as the directorate we face in Jharkhand. Thereafter, the roadmap where we are talking of reimagining urban governance and the Jharkhand Vision 2047, and also some short to medium term DMA priorities where we are planning to execute certain things at the directorate level. So DMA in Jharkhand was formed in 2008, and so it has been around 17 years of the formation of DMA, and we have come a long way ahead. There was this Jharkhand Municipal Act in 2011, which further strengthened the role of DMA, gave it more powers. And currently, the key role and responsibilities of DMA are as follows. We are basically into implementation and policy formation and monitoring of the centrally sponsored schemes, the state sponsored schemes. So as DMA, we are overseeing the implementation and monitoring and the policy framing of centrally sponsored urban missions and schemes, including Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, the DGASY, Deen Dayal Ajivika Yojana Shehri, that is to address the occupational vulnerability of the urban poor. And then there is this PM Swanidhi, which and its extended initiative, which is the Swanidhi Se Samriddhi for urban street vendor empowerment and their financial inclusion. For the state-sponsored schemes, we have this specific scheme called the Mukhyamantri Shehri Yojana, which is responsible for which is focusing on the urban infrastructure, basic services, and livelihood opportunities for the unskilled laborers in the urban areas. And this Mukhyamantri Shehri Yojana, the entire execution, its monitoring and policy formation is done by the DMA. Thereafter, we have around 49 ULBs, urban local bodies in the state of Jharkhand. We are monitoring all of them. We are supervising all of them. The service delivery, the HR management, the financial accountability, all that is looked after the DMA. We are also involved in their capacity building, their staffing structure rationalization, the skill enhancement of the ULB functionaries. We are also working on the e-governance part. We have this online citizen services, grievance redressal mechanisms, and performance dashboards. It also oversees the overall recruitment, deployment, and the management of all the city managers across ULBs to enhance technical and administrative capacity, and also to facilitate all the project executions at the ULB level. We are also responsible for creation and strengthening of essential municipal cadres like junior engineers. We have this concept of garden superintendents, law assistants, community organizers, which ensure systematic staffing in the urban local body. So this is very basically about the key roles and responsibilities of DMA in the state of Jharkhand. Coming to the various specific challenges which as the directorate we are facing here are the limited institutional capacity. We lack skilled manpowers in the ULB specifically, lack of integrated HR and performance systems. There's also some lack in the convergence with the social sector schemes, which I feel is very important, because when we are talking talking of urban development, or when we are talking of urban governance for the future, the convergence with the other social sector schemes becomes a very important part. And I think there's a gap there which we need to really look into. Also, citizen engagement was discussed earlier. So that is also one area, I think, which becomes a challenge for us, and also the digital service systems. So if talking about these key challenges, I think the role of DMA becomes all the more important. And what we plan to do, I'll discuss a bit later. But just to speak in the context of Jharkhand, there are 3 to 4 very good initiatives which Jharkhand has taken, and we are taking up them as case studies, as innovations, or you may call as best practices, which we plan to replicate in other ULBs as well. For example, if we talk of inclusive housing, we have this leprosy colony in the city of Ranchi and in the city of Devghar and Jamshedpur. And this is basically an integrated rehabilitation and dignified housing for a vulnerable cluster. So this we do under the PMAY Urban. So in this, we have constructed around 700 to 800 units for the leprosy affected people, and it's a very good model of vulnerable and integrated housing. Then talking of affordable housing, we have this lighthouse project in Ranchi, which basically demonstrates the use of advanced construction technologies, ensuring faster and quality housing delivery. This affordable housing was constructed and completed in a record time, and it was inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister of India. And this sets up a very good model for ensuring affordable housing at a very good space, and using the most advanced technologies for housing. For livelihood and vendor empowerment, we have done good work in Ranchi again, and we have created Atal Smriti Vendor Market, wherein we have provided dignified areas to urban street vendors through organized vending zones, and around 500 street vendors have been allotted vending spaces, enabling orderly vending and keeping the roads also encroachment free. So this is another good model we have been able to do in Ranchi. And there's another initiative, which is the Pink Auto Initiative, uh, uh, being implemented by the Ranchi Municipal Corporation, which promotes women empowerment by providing pink autos dedicated to women passengers, operated by the self-help group women members. So a total of around 300 SHG members have been engaged, and they are benefiting from this pink auto initiative in Ranchi. So these are some of the models which we have executed, found them to be successful, and we are planning to replicate them in other ULBs of the state as well. Now, the goal, I feel, is to create synergy through integrated planning, through digital dashboards, and through participatory monitoring frameworks. So this is how we have defined our goal, and the roadmap for reimagining urban governance, or you may call the Jharkhand Vision 2047. We have planned out, and we have shortlisted a few steps or a few ways how we are going to do it. So what I feel the most important, and as agreed by, I think, everybody, is a dedicated capacity building program for the ULBs, which I feel is the core and the most important factor which will help us to achieve our vision of 2047. Also, the apart linked learning and the IGOT Karm Yogi has been mandated by the Department of Personnel and Training for all civil servants in the state. Now, this initiative we plan to implement in Jharkhand for the training of ULB staffs as well. So we are trying to integrate it with the training of the ULB officials, so that they can perform better and to improve their capacity in terms of their work output. Now, also these programs of capacity building we are organizing through centers of excellence, which have been established by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Digital governance promotion is another area where we are planning to work. We're already working on it also, to adopt digital tools, GIS planning, data-driven decisions, and real-time monitoring to enhance the efficiency and service delivery. An inclusive urban development structure, I think, and to recognize the urban vulnerable groups like the gig workers, the domestic workers, the construction workers through skilling and enterprise support through NIULM, which the new scheme, which is very soon going to be launched by the Government of India, takes care of this vulnerable section of the urban population as well, and also to include them in our other welfare schemes. Housing for all and the slum upgradation. This ensures houses for all ULB level weaker sections through the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana urban convergence. So we are adopting inclusive rehabilitation colonies, as I mentioned, the leprosy clusters and the informal settlements. We also are working for livelihood and enterprise promotion by strengthening the urban SHGs, micro enterprises, and vendor markets. We are also developing incubation hubs under CLAP and NULM. Citizen engagement and transparency institutionalization through citizen feedback loops, public dashboards, and scheme outcomes. Their regular monitoring is another part I think is very important. And also we have prepared an Urban Vision 27 Jharkhand, that is a strategy document which is aligned with the national roadmap, and the replication of the vendor market models, the leprosy colonies to all ULBs, as I already mentioned. And also we are in the process of establishing an urban governance resource and training center, that is UGERTC under DMA, for continuous professional development. So these are the few points or steps which we plan to execute so as to reach our vision of 2047. This is in very brief what I wanted to speak about the Jharkhand state and the Director of Municipal Administration in Jharkhand. I'm once again very grateful to all the speakers. It was great to hear from all of you, and I'm sure this is going to be a good learning for me. And as I get to know and experience more in this department, I am sure I will be able to maybe contribute more and in a better manner in days to come to any other discussion in future. So thank you, Ria, and thank you, Professor Chetan Vaidya for moderating, and all the other respected speakers, ma'ams and sirs, for listening out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy ji. Thank you for those inputs. And I think we have taken your points about how the state has developed this urban vision 2047 within our overall framework. And also specifically in future, we will look how you are developing this urban governance and capacity building center. So it will be interesting to see this, and also to hear about various capacity building and other programs which you now plan to implement all other parts of the state. So your inputs are very relevant for us. Ria, can you?
Thank you, ma'am, for the insightful contribution and for shedding light on the practical aspects of the activities and initiatives taking place, as well as the upcoming steps in Jharkhand. I now invite our next speaker, Dr. Purnima Chauhanji, IS retired, former Secretary, Government of Himachal Pradesh, to share her remarks. A warm welcome to you, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ria. And it was really enlightening listening to Dr. Chetan Vaidya's opening remarks, Dr. Kundu, Professor Ramachandran, and of course, Mr. Tikendra Pawar, who has been Deputy Mayor Shimla, and of course, the very detailed inputs given by Nancy Sahai. And thank you, IMPRI, for having center stage this very important debate about the role of the DMA and our role, I mean, the role of the urbanization in Viksit Bharat 2047. Where are we and where do we really want to be? Now, I feel that when we are talking reform over here, and this seems to be very disruptive reform, it's very tempting to actually start anchoring a disruptive reform as we leave footprints on the sands of time if we are successful in doing so. But while dispensing with the DMA, are we throwing the baby out with the bathwater? That is my concern. And the DMA to me is more like a mutant of Samir Unhale's G's elephant and an octopus. So I don't know what animal will come out of that, but it seemed like a mutation of the elephant and the octopus. It has so much to perform, its multiple functions and roles. They need multiple capacities and capabilities and skills. So if we have a new creature in place of the DMA, where is the guarantee that this creature will come with all those skills? So this is the question that haunts me ever since I received that list of queries which Arjunji had sent to all of us, I think. Now, I think the best way to resolve this is to find out where does the shoe pinch currently, and then can we prevent shoe bite? So, can new administrative structures ensure that tackling the multiple challenges that DMAs face is possible? If yes, I welcome the new dispensation. But there is another possibility, the reverse is possible. So, a snapshot of the roles, responsibilities, and challenges of the DMA, I think that will provide a good baseline data, and I think data has been sufficiently emphasized as the starting point for any kind of evaluation, reform, feedback, and corrective action. So let's cull out the performance gaps gradually. And as I do this, the words that come to my mind when I think of ULBs, when I think of a DMA, migration, financing, investments, capacity building, and financial capacity, fund absorption, poverty, innovative reforms, impacts of GST, the investable cities which are growing, gender issues, and then, of course, you have water, you have energy, housing, vendors, and urban transport, and so on. And of course, within all this, and I'm stating all these so that I don't miss it out in the balance that I have to say, the environment, the ESG, that is a new component which is now imposed on all the corporates. Environment, social, and governance reporting, which the BRSR report captures, and that is the report which goes to the SEBI. Now, this is currently imposed only on the corporates. I think soon it should be at least an indicator list, performance measurement list, which should be applied to all other sectors also. So, and of course, you have the Udan, the Gati, and as far as structures of administration go, what straight away comes to my mind is, are we, if you're going to replace the DMA with a more efficient, and efficient means time efficient, cost efficient also, are we looking at something like new public management by any chance? Corporatization, contractual arrangements, there are examples sufficient. You can, if in fact, I think in one of the Niti Aayog reports, which I was just going through, glancing through, I found that when they were doing an analysis of cities, they actually had harked back among various other cities. They had talked of Malmo in Sweden. And I personally happened to have gone there and seen for myself that what interesting systems that that country has and that particular city has, where it can synthesize and aggregate the needs of 173 ethnic groups, because they have allowed so many of them to come and take refuge in their country. They have 173 ethnic groups, all of them represented and heard, not only by the citizens panel, which is an innovation in itself, but they are also heard in each sector. For instance, the town and country planning, here's each one of them takes into account, even before they moved one brick to create a city, they have put only they've only taken paper and pencil and probably a screen to tell their citizens what are they planning to do. And that concept is not firmed up. That concept is thrown open to the citizens. They are allowed to participate. And if I may share, the extent of participation is to this extent that there were some Somalian ladies in that group when the citizens were being asked how are they going to do the spatial planning of the city. And these Somalian ladies came up with a query. They said, why are you having windows in the kitchen? In our kitchens, we don't want windows. So it was very surprising. Why would you not want windows in the kitchens? Normally, everybody has them. They said, according to our cultural norms and nuances, we are supposed to wear a hijab if we can be seen from anywhere. So if we have windows in the kitchen, we can be seen. So taking, and we spend 80% of our time in the kitchen. So we will feel absolutely claustrophobic. Can you imagine that the level of concern and the level of participation being to that extent? That is why the issue of getting compliance was missing, almost missing in Sweden. Wherever we went, whether it was to a solid waste management plant, whether it was to a sewage plant, whether it was to a recycling plant, everywhere compliance was there by the citizens because they had a role in framing the policy. Now, is that what is lacking? That is my first question. We are looking at a situation where today we have umpteen number of densification because we are going from a position of, as somebody also mentioned, 576 million, 32% urban population. India is rapidly going to 600 million by 2030. And then 900 million, which will be 60% of our population of 1.7 billion at that time. Where is this coming from? 30 migrants every minute go to the urban areas. Agglomeration has its advantages. It has a lot of advantage, and that is why you see Apple and Amazon having descended upon India to invest over here. The million plus cities are climbing from 53 in 2011 to 87 by 2030. Now, the urban population, the slums in the urban population is the flip side. Almost 50% of our urban population is slums, 236 million, and but 36% incomes are more in the jobs in the urban areas than in the rural areas. So when we look at the SWOT analysis of what promotes urbanization, what promotes migration, and then we look at what is the role of the DMA, is this beyond their capacities? Is it within their capacities? Is it simply a question of having more sector specific skill specialists to be able to handle this? So 80% poverty reduction, it is claimed, is due to urbanization, which is a very welcome thing. I think I'll have to re-examine that figure. But a very important figure is that with every growth in urban population, 1.5% per year economic output also grows. But what is the investment needed for all of this? Humongous investment. The projections made by the World Bank says $2.4 trillion by 2050 for creating a climate resilient urban infrastructure. A climate resilient urban infrastructure certainly is a challenge not just for any municipality, it's a challenge for the whole country, which has determined that by the year 2070, we will have net zero emissions. Now, the idea is that our municipalities plugging into those national concerns, Viksit Bharat is fine. But Viksit municipality, Viksit Shahar, are they plugging into those concerns to have convergence? And convergence is the key issue over here. If they're all acting in different directions and there is no convergence and collaboration, then whichever form of government governance that you have, it is not going to work. So the present investment levels are fairly low in the infrastructure, and this time the budget has taken care of that. It is a huge fillip in the budget that we have about 100,000 crores, which is for infrastructure, and that is nearly 52% more than last revised estimates. And this is critical. The Urban Challenge Fund is a critical input. Again, my question is that the Urban Challenge Fund is definitely, it is there for you to take. But the fact is, do the municipalities have the wherewithal to avail of it? And why do I doubt this is because even the big or the small municipalities today, the flagship schemes of the government under urbanization since 2014 especially, is smart cities, SBM, Amrut, MRTS, PMAU, Hriday, etc., etc. What is the absorption level? The absorption level in the municipality, Amrut is only 80% and smart cities is 70%. I won't talk about the others because these are the two major concern areas. That if this is the state of the city's ability to absorb, then are we throwing good money after bad? So where is the funding going to come from? Is it going to come from the cities? That is a huge skill area, which irrespective of DMA or no DMA, that skill area definitely needs to be seen and that definitely needs to be strengthened completely. The 12th schedule I mean, 12th schedule was a game changer with the 74th Amendment, that the ULBs have to craft their own plans. All well, better said than done. Authentic baseline data is needed for that. absence of a uniform code for data accounting, which has been flagged by the RBI, that is not existing. Absence of a city system or a circular thinking for the economy itself, which is the need not only for municipalities, it is a need for the whole country. But perhaps at a smaller level, it's easier to tackle. And keeping the climate change concerns. So, all these taken together, then having a statutory process of clearing of your plans, that tedium needs to be improved. Then having, the Land Acquisition Act in its present form has again that has added on to the cost of land. So any project which requires at least a decent rate of return, for example, your mobility projects, there is a requirement of 14% IRR. How are we going to achieve this if the land is going to be expensive? How do you unlock the land value? How do you ensure that there is transferable development rights and transit oriented development is initiated? New forms of financing have to come in, because by itself the center is municipalities revenues are hardly 1% of the GDP, and financial autonomy is extremely low. The center gives to the MC 0.5% direct financing, and whereas this is against Brazil, which gives 8%, South Africa gives 6.9%, and wherever there's a gap, South Africa has something called an equalization bridging fund, because they're serious about decentralization. Similarly, Brazil has, despite the 8% that is there, 65% of the MC revenues come from the central fund transfers. Now, this keeps decentralization afloat. Again, the 12th schedule requires that it provides that out of the 18 functions which have been given, 12 functions have corresponding financing. But where does all this revenue get distributed? Basic services take up 50% of the revenues, and transportation takes up the balance. Property tax is the most important internal tax. But what is the yield? 0.15% of the MC revenues on an average. The 36 largest MCs, they yielded only 37% as property tax as a percentage of their revenue. Pre GST, MC revenues were 53% of the total revenues. Post GST, the situation is that revenue generation is less, from 0.33% of GDP in 2012 to 0.23% in 2017. 160 cities have been recorded as investment grade in India, but only 20 cities are credit worthy. Where will PPPs go? Will they have the confidence and the trust to be able to invest in these? So, in 3 years, to bolster PPPs in global capacity centers, we hope that we will be ensuring that there are, the projects in the municipalities are attractive enough to attract investment of that level, that private sector has a definite participative role, and that is absolutely critical. Now, coming to urbanization, urban transport, sorry. No, sorry, let me finish on this. That the kind of funding, unlocking land value, apart from that, the kind of funding that we can consider is developer fees, value capture, land asset management, so that financial autonomy improves. But at the same time, when we look at those projects which are capturing a lot of the financing that the municipalities have, despite Gati, your Metro Policy 2017 requires that plans have to, multimodal transport plans have to be generated by the municipality. City mobility plan is essential, and UMTA is essential. My own experience says UMTA is not even understood. It is not understood by the municipality. It is not understood by the state government. And in Himachal Pradesh, I have tried my level best to have an UMTA, but it doesn't seem to find any kind of traction with the government. Now, at the same time, I think, just a minute before this goes, my laptop battery is going. Just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. I'll uh, just a minute. I'm joining with this one. I'm just leaving this because this battery is showing that it's not going to last very long, and it's
Recording in progress.
Okay. Thank you, Purnima ji. Have you changed your? Have you shifted to mobile? I see two sources.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I have changed my source. Thank God.
Okay.
And now I just wanted to say, while saying this, that we can, as far as climate change is concerned, India has the dubious distinction of being the 7th most climate affected country. 42 of the 50 most polluted cities are over here. Now, 18 smart and 124 Amrut cities have high flood risk levels. 21 cities are so water stressed that are going to zero groundwater level. These are the kind of challenges which are facing us. And a high NRW, non-revenue water, of 40%, it really doesn't augur very well. And this sanitation situation was sought to be corrected by the 13th Finance Commission through the service level benchmarks, which unfortunately have literally fallen by the wayside. Because even today, if you sit down to make an architecture for all those 5 sectors that they covered, which were related to sanitation, you'll come up with exactly the same framework. So why should a framework which could have worked so well has been abandoned, discarded, or forgotten? I think it should be dusted and used again. And it is being used in some pockets, but not everywhere. Learning replication was mentioned, that DMAs must ensure that they become harbingers of replication, scaling up, etc., of reforms. Very important, because replicating and copying intelligently is far better than innovating from scratch. So Surat wastewater recycling is definitely a model which should be replicated. Dharmapuri MP, the water surplus that they have done by connecting every house to sewerage and to recycling of water, that should be replicated. At the same time, we have housing concerns which are huge, and some facts and figures which I'll share, but I certainly want feedback on these. That is very important. Currently, we are short by 10 million affordable houses, and that is going to increase to 30 million by 2030, and nearly 230 million by 2047. Yet, affordable housing demand is likely to decline as we go further. And this is a figure quoted by Naredco, from 43% to 9%. Is it the Swami Fund which is going to make sure that that happens? I don't know. So housing, what is projected is that mid and high income demand housing is going to increase, and it will yield $3.5 million by 2047, which is substantial. Commercial space demand is going to increase, especially in the 8 top cities. 278 square feet, 278 million square feet in 2008 has increased to 898 million in 2025. So when India is at $36 trillion economy by 2047, then it is projected that 69% of the workforce will be will be formally employed, and will be yielding something like $473 billion in the year 2047. Now, these are the projections which compel us to, yes, make sure to strengthen our municipalities, to ensure that we reap this harvest and don't allow it to fall by the wayside. At the same time, the self-employed loaning under the day NULM scheme, 34.2 lakh livelihoods have been, it's claimed that they are created, and skill training has been imparted to 14.9 lakh candidates. But at the same time, in order to have more streamlined functioning convergence, etc., it is important that municipalities per se, they look at corridors. Governments also look at it, that the industrial corridors are synchronized with the urbanization and the metro corridors. That is logical. Synergy will be reaped definitely. And de-urbanize the manufacturing centers to sync with affordable housing and industrial corridors. And affordable housing also, when private sector has to step in, then leased unused government land could be given out. Infrastructure status could be given to such homes so that they can avail of some sort of funding. Extend grant and aid to the AHP, Affordable Housing Scheme project, in partnership with the PMAY. And as far as waste management is concerned, again, we have the dubious distinction of waste being 62 million metric tons per year generated, 43 million being collected, 12 million being treated, and 31 million being abandoned and discarded. Now, this is certainly not auguring well for health, and it is very poor land use also because the landfills get used. On gender concerns, and being a woman, I would definitely flag this issue. Cities, Jane Dark has said cities are patriarchy written in stone, glass, brick, and concrete. That may be an extreme position, but at the same time, the increasing female sex ratio in India definitely shows that there are going to be bigger participants, more participants in urbanization and in availing the basic amenities that are provided. So, female labor force participation by increasing it from 31% currently to 50% will definitely will make our GDP jump at a pace that is unheard of. And again, then the last point that I'm trying to make is tech, DGI, and generative AI. Now, urban adaptation index and ease of living index are extremely important to monitor what is happening because what gets measured gets done. Now, getting to the triple bottom line at the grassroots level to ensure the maximum people over there who fall through the cracks like it happened during COVID, that doesn't happen. That the benefits trickle down, the multipliers trickle down, and I think that is why urbanization is inevitable. But do we really have to look at disruption of the DMA? Or do we have to look at strengthening of the DMA? And my take is a known devil is better than an unknown angel. I rest my case over there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. You made some very important points, and we will, that housing numbers which you mentioned about projected housing, I think I had not seen them, but maybe it needs a separate discussion on that
Yes,
issue.
I would love to actually verify those.
Yeah. Yeah. I will hand it over to Priya. I think Sameer is waiting. No?
Yes, thank you, ma'am, for sharing your valuable insights on administrative structures, ESG reporting, and new public management, as well as on issues related to lack of compliance, convergence, and collaboration. Finally, I invite Mr. Sameer Unhaleji, Joint Commissioner, Department of Municipal Administration, Government of Maharashtra, and visiting Senior Fellow IMPRI to share his views. Welcome, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a matter of great honor for me to share a screen with Ramchandran sir, Chetan Vaidya sir, and John ma'am, with whom I have earlier worked. I have seen at the very senior position of decision making. And in fact, I have attended many meetings of Ramchandran sir and Vaidya sir also that time. So it's a matter of great honor. And also, I would like to thank from the sort of the municipal administration community, so to say, for to IMPRI and to NIUA and to all Ramchandran sir, Vaidya sir, Chauhan ma'am, for sparing their thoughts and their attentions on this topic, which in that sense is may not be very glamorous in that way. What is a typical, clerical functioning or whatever you might call it, seeking information, giving approvals, whatever. But the municipal era, so to say, in whatever I recollect reading, started at all India level on 1st January 1850. There was an act called as Act number 24 of 1850, and that's what I recollect reading. And it was an all India act which empowered the then governors and the then chief commissioners to establish municipalities, provided they get a proposal or a recommendation from the then district collector or the deputy commissioner, as was the case. So, in my way of understanding, 1st Jan 1850, so that's almost 175 years. In that way, we have seen the municipal structure, municipalities in India, and municipal governance remains the paramount, if I am use that word, paradigm of governing urban areas and guiding the process of urbanization. So in that sense, the establishment of municipalities is, as we know, currently we have around 4,500 municipalities, and maybe after the next census figures come, probably we might double that. We have also seen numbers that the absolute population staying in municipalities currently seems to be around 48, 49 or around 50 crores. And next 40 years, when we are considering Viksit Bharat for 2047, 25 years, 20, almost 20 years now, and extend that to further 20 years. So next 40 years, we should be saying substantial population staying in the urban area, which within our constitutional frameworks will be the municipalities in one way or another. Therefore, this in that way becomes a very, very important way, the way whatever India would be experienced by its people for next 40 years. It is essentially how the municipalities would be delivering. So that was the first submission to this gathering. Secondly, I feel we are again in the era of multi-level governance, as it is called, which earlier was cooperative federalism. We can probably suggest a collaborative federalism as another concept to think on, because I think the era of missions, of course, Ramchandran sir being here, and he was leading the missions in his time in Maua. The era of missions, in that sense, started in my understanding of 2005, sorry, and when the JNRM was launched. And in my view, it was a substantial change, the way the union government used to connect with municipalities, because there might be a couple of, funding with the Finance Commission, if at all, small schemes. But the emphasis, the focus, the thrust, the financial resources which were made available within the JNRM were unprecedented then. And now in 2015 onwards, there was one mission. Now we are around 4 to 5 missions for urban India, which was PMAY, as was also mentioned by ma'am, that it was PMAY, Swachh Bharat, Amrut, which is substantial investment. Smart City, of course, there was Hriday. And of course, the Finance Commission allocation, which comes to the cities, is also huge. So what we have seen in the last 20 years, that the functioning of municipalities in that sense has become more important and will continue to be more. So when you are thinking from the perspective of multi-level governance, or as we might call now as collaborative federalism, will be the role that the state and provincial or a state level will be very important of coordination and guiding the municipalities. So of course, I mean, there is a very strong intellectual tradition of everything being decentralized and trust on government on what it is, and therefore everything would be at the city level. That of course is a valid point of view which anyone can have. But if you are thinking practically, then obviously in this era of, as I say, collaborative federalism, we require an organizational structure at the state level, which will be connecting union and the cities, and also the multiple departments that exist within the union as well as the state government, the various public sectors which are there. So obviously a collaborative role at the state level is inevitable, and therefore that role has to be played by some organization, whatever you may choose to call. Because I mean, without taking name of the countries, the entire spectrum of political ideologies which currently are seen in various nation states, we find that at every end of the stage of the every end of the spectrum, for that matter, a role at the state level for the urban and housing exist in all possible levels. The political ideologies with all the member states of United Nations might be following. So therefore, a coordinating institution for that coordinating role is inevitable, irrespective of what one we would like to call. You may call it as a Director of Municipal Administration, you may call it as anything else, but the inevitability is that we require an institution that will coordinate various things at the state level. So that, I believe, is an inevitability, irrespective of what you would choose to call it. Further, I would like to submit that in administration, in public ad, as used to call it then, the administrative development is also seen as structural differentiation and functional specialization among institutions. So that, I believe, is a phenomena that we are also witnessing in a way, that we are having multiple types of organizations which are trying to focus on a particular activity, and then so that it is made better. And therefore, this current status that we have multiple types of institutions working within the urban spaces, they of course will be the municipality. There would also be a smart city. There are public sector, there are municipal public purse undertakings. In some cases, some electricity is distributed by the municipal government. You have the private sector, which in that sense is dealing with the entire data economy, which is something is coming up at 2047. We know it's going to be very big. And the entire data economy framework in that way is with the private initiative. So the existence of multiple types of institutions should not be seen as a threat to a municipal setup. On the what we are talking of, collaborative federalism at a vertical level. Similarly, the collaborative actions will be essential at the urban level. That various departments, various institutions, various organizations are communicating the facts to each other, are sharing the plan of actions and budgetary allocations and maybe the projects which they are doing more freely, so that you can avoid duplication, you can do away with the gaps, cover the gaps, you can plan and synchronize your activities properly, so that the lot of the frictions, which sometimes friction is not conflict, but I'm saying friction is the non-synchronous deployment of resources and projects and manpower, that will be substantially reduced. So therefore, at these three stages, what we are seeing is that the multiple institution is also inevitability. That's a way of, as we studied in sociology, like there are going to be structural differences, functions as a part of process of evolution. So the efficiency demands which are increasing will in a way lead to having organizations which will be focusing on narrower focus on narrower activities, and also deploying multiple resources to ensure the data communication flow and the coherence and the synchronity of time and deployment. That I think is also a major phase which is going to happen in next maybe 2 or 3 decades that we are considering. So of course, the Directorate of Municipal Administration, which is often called the state of my state, where I have opportunity to work, it wasn't existing when the British Acts were in place. So, in case of Maharashtra, we had after the reorganization of the state in 1960, we had 3 different legislative frameworks which existed in the erstwhile central province, the Hyderabad state, and of course the Bombay province, as it was called then. So these 3 acts were, a committee was established, and therefore a new act was made for all these 3 historical areas. And in that act, this Directorate of Municipal Administration was created, which didn't exist earlier in the British Act. So it was basically, of course, as we know, district collector has always been an important functionary who has managed all the district, which also includes municipalities in his jurisdiction. So this change of having a separate directorate was also a part of distinction between the political authority and the political inevitability of the municipal elections, and that way. Therefore, if any and everything goes to the government, obviously, which is the honorable minister who functions as the government in our current sense, and if all the decisions of the municipalities again go to the elected representative in whichever role he is, then the issue was there whether should we have a different framework which is not directly under the control of the political executive. And in my understanding, this could be a reason as to why a separate directorate was an inevitability out of the political realities of functioning. So that's the reason why you ought to have a DM. You might call anything else. I mean, the name can be anything. It can be a board, it can be directed, whatever you want to call it. But that the existence of such an institution at state level is inevitably something which actually I'm trying to share with the honorable members here and so within this framework, now of course the very good part is what is going to happen from next 20 years or 22 years or 50 years. So the role of the municipal bodies, of course, I would like to, actually, I think we need, of course, Kundu ma'am was here, so maybe NIUA could help of having, some way of how exactly the DMA functions in all the 28 states and 7, 8 union territories. I think is a gap actually into the very broader discussions that normally are there. I tried to search the DMA on the slide share and other things, can I get, of course, there are some articles in the journal, IJPA, the Journal of Public Administration, has certain articles on the function of DMA. But otherwise, it's a bit unexplored area, and as to share the state, I mean, the urban system of Maharashtra, sometimes I like to do a list of 426 municipalities and population of 6.5 crores and probably 2.75 lakh employees and an annual financial allocation of 1.3 lakh crores. That is a municipal system that we are talking of. That is the significance. Obviously, state level governance will be required, it's inevitable. So what next phase, as I said, was in next 20 years, what could be the structure of a state level municipal body? It can, of course, in the act is very clear that because the municipality is autonomous, it's a locally elected, it's a local body for that matter, it's a local body authority. So it has a democratic elections there. And therefore, the function of direction, control, and supervision, the typical bureaucratic words you find, the direction, supervision, and control function over the municipalities, because they are locally, in a way, they are local bodies, is a role which someone has to play, for which there has to balance the conflicting needs of various groups. It could be political, it could be financial control, and this function of direction, supervision, and control is again a inevitable function that someone will have to play. Earlier, earlier, most of the, I don't know, I haven't studied all the 28 states and how the structure of directorates is there. But what little I have learned that a very good model exists, which of course Vaidya sir had also told us, that there is an independent regional structure which exists. As I mean, maybe talking very purely with the public administration part, that this independent structure which exists with independent, I mean, in a government, it is not linked with any other department like many states have. In Maharashtra, the revenue district collector and the revenue divisional commissioner is in fact de facto controlling the entire municipal administrative system. And probably that, of course, existed for almost 150, 175 years. Some other, so Gujarat model I had tried to read through, which has created this structure. I believe is because the institution of district collector is so busy that he has to do any and everything under the sun in his jurisdiction. So obviously, a specialized, focused system, institutional framework probably could give, because the chain of hierarchy is very clear in government. Unless you sign the casual leave and sign the CR, no one is boss of nobody. It's a very simple system. So unless you only have to ask the permission for CL and you leave, and if you're signing the CR, only then you are the boss. Otherwise you aren't. So basically. Within there are certain, some discussions, reports, which sometimes we tend to interact with people from other states. That probably the Gujarat model, as was discussed earlier, this specialized focus structure within the district as well as division is something that could able to deliver, to focus on the time, which sometimes is very difficult. So the time, resources, technical expertise is something, and the sectoral expertise also, that's also important. So if someone is a water supply engineer in rural area, he may not obviously able to cope up with how things function in a city and the pressures of cities. That are obviously different. It's inevitable. So this part of having a separate, or I won't use the word separate, but a focus specialized, even the field arms of that directorate is something, or whatever you might choose to call it, is something which will ensure better statutory responsibilities, which any case the department has. Whether the legislature frames the statute and some responsibility has been given to the government, and obviously it has to fulfill it. And as we know, secretariat are mostly into policy making, into relations with the legislature and the budgetary allocations and the relations with the union government. That's what the secretariat does. So what the field of organization obviously has to be strengthened in that sense for the direction, supervision, and control. So these three words are not very popular with academicians, if I may say, or even the think tanking community. But it is trying to balance multiple, needs which may not be conflicting. It is not may not be balancing, maybe coherence, synthesis, and balancing of very multiple needs is an inevitable organizational inevitability, which is we will have to face, and therefore an institution is required for doing that. So this, at first, one, last point, because I probably I have, I don't know, I'm speaking for almost 15 minutes now, so I will try to stop here. But just say what could happen in next 20 years, as was also shared by Chetan ma'am and Vaidya sir and Ramchandra sir also, and Nancy ma'am also. That next 40 years, in the, of course, next 22 years for that matter, maybe to, if you expect another 20 years, so next 40 years span, the urban population, as John ma'am say, would go to around 80, 90 crores, or God knows what. Currently 5.5, 4,500 municipalities would probably become, or almost whatever, 10, 12,000, shouldn't be much of a surprise. So, and if 1 billion people will be staying in 10,000 municipalities with the financial allocation and with the changing trends that we are seeing on the challenges which municipalities face. So maybe in 1995 or Y2K, for that year 2000, the major issues which the municipality had to face, and now we are in 2025, what are the major issues we have to face? I think they have changed substantially. It may be a very gradual process. So maybe in those phases, even having a simple water supply scheme was a big task, because the municipal finances as what they are, and whatever support was available before the era of missions came, it was always limited. So what could be the challenges that we'll be facing, for post maybe 25 to 65 or 47, whatever. So that will be a major, shift, which probably we are witnessing, but probably not recognizing those trends or those elements. And I always feel, that COVID was always the shocker, that, a black swan event, as we may call, but it shifted, everything. So many things got changed into that. And whether the public health in the urban sector, as long as the state government provides, but if big municipal corporations are left aside, the public health infrastructure at the municipal level is something that a lot of things needs to be done or deliberated onto that. So the challenges post-COVID, I mean, with the COVID that we saw that change. Now urban flooding is something that we all see. Earlier, some city would probably have a recurrently monsoon and the tide not matching, that timing of rainfall and the high tide not matching, the flooding still happens in the coastal areas somewhere. But now we are seeing those cities which didn't had any such issue are also have to engage with urban flooding. It was unexpected that the name of, I won't be taking names of the cities, but we all know that always in media as to know the way water is logging happening in other cities is unheard of. So probably, as we know, the element of climate change as far as India is concerned, as discussed, is a heavier rainfall and a intense rainfall into India. That is that's supposed to be a prediction for climate change in India. It's not going to be drought, it's going to be heavier rain. So therefore, you are going to having more intense rainfall, short duration cloud bursts could be a possibility that could become more frequent in this, as far as this prediction of climate change goes. And then how are the urban areas or cities or municipalities or smart cities or the parastatals or whichever agents, institutions are responsible for that. So how this will, that's something, we will have to prepare for that. So maybe I feel that, from the direction, control and supervision, they are very important words for probably someone who works with the clerkdom. Probably we will have to reorient the DMAs or any state level coordinating, synchronizing authorities to communication, coordination, and cooperation. So that would be, my sort of summarizing point, that yes, inevitable that you ought to have a state level coordinating, synchronizing institution, whatever you might call it, for any sector, which includes even the municipality, more so municipalities, because there is a local democratic institutions are working, and therefore synchronizing them is an inevitability. It can't be denied. number one. And of course, the traditional governance framework, which I believe is still, is more of, the colonial DNA of our statutes is still very much there, and is more so prominent in municipalities because the municipalities were with our nationalist leaders, and the then colonial power obviously had to keep it in under control. Therefore, a very strong way of controlling that. So obviously, if we should move if we change our from thinking from direction, supervision, or control to that of coordination, communication, cooperation, I believe we can have a substantial change in the way the municipalities will function in Indian context, and therefore the lives of the affect also the lives of the citizens who are there. So I think that would be a very important point. I think that we will have to deliberate, and I must again thank. IMPRI and NIUA and of course all for taking this point for deliberation, which probably at least I am saying it for the first time in the last 20 years. What since the era of missions I talk, we talk of sectoral issues, water supply, solid waste management, smart and Hriday, and of course required. But the municipalities as the main institutions of working there, even if it is a smart city, it's a company owned by the municipality. So I think this, of course, has been my major debate most of the sessions, that smart city company is a company owned by the municipality, so it is not outside municipality. So that confusion which I feel was somehow was people working smart city framework could not uh, challenge the criticism that was more theoretical about smart cities. The opportunities were immense. You might call whatever you want to call that institution, but an institution which allows cooperation, coherence, coordination, and community participation is inevitable. I think that's way that will have to move ahead. So I hope I have not exceeded my time limit, sir. Thank you very much for giving us a patient hearing. Uh, this is what normally we do for bread and butter, but ability to share that and the opportunity to share the thoughts probably could be more helpful to academicians and researchers who are interested in working this thing, and therefore thanks a lot for everybody. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So you bring in, Samirji, you bring in a unique combination of academics and practical knowledge, and it's a pleasure to listen to you, this unique combination. So thank you so much for those inputs. I think I will give it now forward it to Ria for closing.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you, sir, for highlighting the value of collaboration, coordination, and data economy frameworks and institutions, as well as the evolving role of municipal bodies in the coming future. I'd now like to invite our chair to share his remarks and if he wishes to pose any questions to the panelists. Meanwhile, the participants are welcome to drop their questions in the chat box and we'll do our best to address them shortly. Over to you, sir.
I think it was a great experience of listening to so many people with diversified background, people who are practicing, we are a researcher, people who have worked at national, state, and city level. So it was a combination at 3 levels and also different academic and research and practical experience. Many issues have emerged. I don't want to take up one particular issue, but the general feeling is that DMA in a reform form should exist. That is my point, I would like to say. And that is where I differ from former mayor of Shimla, that DMA should exist, but obviously they need to be reformed as we go in the next 20 years. Like the urban areas have to reform with different issues, the DMA also has to reform. And it should support changes at the local level and strengthen municipalities. And as somebody said, it should bring Viksit cities for the future. That is the point I have taken. I have no specific questions for the panel, but if you feel you have time and you can ask at least a few questions, I think you could go ahead, Ria.
So we can take a brief 1-minute closing remarks from each panelist.
Sure.
Samir, sir, or Punima ma'am, if you'd like to go first.
Samirji, you go first.
No, Punima madam, you go. He has just finished. Let's
Okay.
take the Purnima ji, then Nancy, and then Samir ji. And I know
Okay.
who else is there. Okay.
Okay. So my experience with during the urban development days is that we had framed an 800 crore project to be posed to the Asian Development Bank, and precisely with this intention that it should not be a top-down approach where municipalities, their plans are thrust upon them. So there was an overarching umbrella of funding, and there was incentive which would be released to them, a specified incentive, when they have the meeting and pass a resolution on what are they going to do. Next incentive will flow at the stage when they concretize the whole plan. And then there was a PIU and a PMU to help them with the technicalities and the financing issues. And as you go along, the municipality would be strengthened by the fact that they're getting fund flow for every decision that they take. Now, as time was short, the ADB didn't have enough time to be able to fund this project. But I thought that this was a reform-linked incentive, to bolster the confidence and the bottoms-up approach. And that is true decentralization. And for that, of course, capacity could not have been built in advance. In fact, our capacity building issues in Himachal were so serious that our elected representatives had never known that there is something called training or capacity building. So when we had to send them for that, I remember the ladies saying that we have not gone outside our district. So how will we go to Chandigarh? So I said, what is the issue and what is the solution that you have in mind? That you have to go. There is no question about that. They said, our husband should go with us. I said, okay, fine. No problem. And in fact, we told the CRID over there, CRID is this organization in Chandigarh where
I know.
this was being organized. Then we said, take them on a city tour, show them spatial planning and how a city can enhance the quality of life by the fact that its spatial planning was very well thought out for at least 100 years. So it was so successful that the women came back asking that this was the orientation. When is the refresher program happening?
Right.
They wanted to go for that. And the husbands, of course, came back more enlightened about the tasks that their wives have to handle. So there was more support from home also. So things like this, things like that Asian Development Bank project, and the capacity effort we had to make to ensure that for 5 years, these people are not twiddling their thumbs. They are elected and they have to be answerable to the public at large. Then things like, accrual accounting, which never took off. It never did. Today, we are talking of asset monetization. We are talking of unlocking land values and TDRs, etc. For the life of me, and then of course, there's something called culture being the fourth pillar of development. And tourism is a big, big push in most of our cities and even the peri-urban areas. How are we going to manage all of these? How are we going to have a sharpened focus on future plans and visions and Viksit cities if we don't have active collaboration, active brainstorming among the stakeholders within the organization, within the municipality, and that they understand also that they can't be, barking up another tree. They have to be synchronized with the overall plans of the state and the country. So this kind of convergence takes a lot of brainstorming and at different levels and a lot of training and capacity building. And luckily, the 15 Finance Commission has given the funds for capacity building. So I would like to see how they are actually being utilized or likely to be utilized so that we strengthen an existing institution. Yes, I think Gujarat model must have been an organic development, and evolutionary processes will dictate what sort of, we can't have a blueprint for it. At least we can have a rough model, but not a blueprint for all the ULBs. They will emerge, but basics have to be there, like urban basic amenities. Urban basic authorities also have to be there.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Very important point. Nancy, could you very briefly say how you would like to
Yeah, thank you, sir.
TMA
And
to be?
after listening to all the speakers and all the very important and very effective points raised by everybody, ma'am, sir, everybody else also, I feel definitely the role of DMA should not be limited. I think the entire idea needs further expansion. If we are actually looking forward for a Viksit Bharat and to make our cities Viksit cities, the entire discussion which has been done during the last 2 hours seems to be very appropriate, very effective, and very to the point. And I feel as a DMA or as a representing the executing body, I think all these points, especially the points raised in context to capacity building, in context to brainstorming, which ma'am talked about right now, these need to be very effectively converged, and they need to be effectively implemented and communicated to the lowest down order also. In fact, the points which we are talking of need to be properly communicated, properly made understood to the people at the ground level who are working and who need to implement these ideas and these concepts very effectively at the field. So I feel that these sorts of discussions, sorts of brainstorming sessions should definitely be organized. And I'm again very thankful to IMPRI for having me here and for letting me also learn a lot. I think having limited experience, but yet the discussions which were made here today and the points raised here today were very helpful. And personally, for me, they were very enlightening and a very good eye opener. So thank you again, everyone, and best wishes to all of you.
Sameerji, final point.
Yes, yeah. So first of all, again, thanks a lot for this initiative. And the growth, as I was rightly pointed out, change is inevitable, and therefore the newer rules, rule accretion or rule deletion, that's bound to happen even in this organization. And therefore preparedness, because what happens is the municipalities, of course, the romanticism of everything to everybody and to municipalities is of course respected ideologically also, but the practical realities are also have to be kept in mind, because those who are engaged interact with municipalities are aware of the issues of institutional captures and the element of other elements taking control of that system, and therefore that balance is inevitable. But however, as was said by everybody here, that newer challenge, we have to prepare DMA also for, or whatever name you would like to call the institution with, for the newer roles, which newer challenges which are emerging. A and B, I always feel, like the Jana Vishwas thing, when it was ease of doing business, probably we also need ease of doing business also for the municipalities to function. And as was also Chetan Vaidya sir said, that, the crux is the finance, and therefore was a demand or, suggestion made by many people many times, that the local bodies should get at source, money in their accounts, like the state and the central GST shares. So the channel of the fund going to a particular government, then there is a then that budget making, and then that creates a tremendous cash flow challenge. And as was said, we cannot have Viksit Bharat without Viksit Nagar or Viksit Gram, is the inevitability that will have to be faced. And therefore, as I said, across the political spectrum of all the member state of within the United Nations, the cities, the great cities which have made great countries. So you take the entire spectrum. That's what that's as much as probably I should speak here. But the entire spectrum, political spectrum, ideological spectrum of the member states in the UN, you will find it is the cities which have grown strong, have made the country stronger. So obviously that cyclical relation will be there. And as I said, for the direction, supervision, control, the key words which still exist in most of the statutes probably require a colonial deconstruction also, and could move, of course, with the checks and balances or trust, whatever, of communication and coordination and cooperation role could be taken over by the DMAs around. I think, of course, capacity building is very important, because we've always tried to. I feel, sometimes it's my prejudice, but I feel the due is not given to the municipal staff of what they are doing. That is some humongous work, that the municipal staff do. But somehow, if I may be forgiven, but treated with not great respect anyway. Even within the government, within outside the government, the work which the municipal staff is unbelievable. The amount of commitment they put in, the hard work they have to do. And if I may be forgiven for using the humiliation and condemnation these people have to face across various sectors, what they perform is a miracle. And therefore, capacity building is not a top up or holier than thou or a charity that somebody is doing. It is the professional respect that the municipal cadres should also receive, and therefore, we had attempt was made to professionalizing municipal services with the recruitment rules, and statewide cadres have been done in various states, of course, and probably could be extended everywhere. So yes, the DMS should also adapt themselves to take on the challenges of the next 40 years that we'll be making for making our cities stronger, with all the financial. Yes, thanks.
Thank you, Samirji.
Thank
Dr. Saab is here. Dr. Saab, Ramchandra Saab is here. Okay. Will you like to make any final comments, sir? Very brief, but
final comments is your domain, I thought. I don't want to further add on, but a couple of words. I like Nancy's approach. I hope she is able to bring about some change in her state.
Right.
She is that young thinking mind, and she has understood the functioning very well. So I hope she initiates some change in the state. I like Samir's approach because Samir is an insider who sees it. Now, Chetanji, we always have to try to balance. These are days of, people talk fashionably disruptive. Everything is disruptive. Now, sorry to say this, I live in a state where everything seems to be moving towards a disruptive scheme of things. It is the politician who should do everything.
Okay.
So can we have a system where only the politician exists and we do away with the system? That's a fundamental question. So I don't think we can keep on advocating that, or we can keep on subscribing to that theory or policy. Why do we have a civil service system? It's a continuing system. It is accountable, responsible. It's another matter. People try to dilute it. Politicians try to influence it. All that is there. But as Mr. Samir was saying, those words are very much disliked today. But it's a question of if funds are passed on to cities or the state, the funds should be properly utilized. Will the politician in power undertake that to the federal government or to the state legislature that I hereby commit to proper, full utilization of these funds? Look at the judiciary. When the judiciary has to ask for some information, it is the civil servant who is summoned to the court, not the political decision maker. So there is a certain system in our scheme of things which has to be kept in mind. I think we started with focusing on what needs to be done as far as the directorates are concerned. So we traveled worldwide, going far beyond the functioning of the directorates. So Chetanji, I hope whenever you have an opportunity, if the IMPRI takes your help and seeks your guidance, this should get focused on what needs to be done about the directorate and its role. We are not here to dilute its role because it's a laid down role by each state government. And there is a requirement. And we know instances where funds have been passed on by the center to the states and we don't know where it went.
Right.
We do not have systems like that. And let us not influence these young minds, those who are in service, that all these possibilities exist. Nancy, don't be influenced by these thoughts. Go by your constitutional responsibility and stand by it. That is why you are there. And that is why the public has trust in people like you.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
No, it's unfortunate, Chetanji, that amongst us there are all sorts of elements. There are corrupt ones, there are ones who try to take advantage and all those things. So that is where a neutral, high-profile civil service has to make sure that things are delivered. Of course, I can see the concern of the political system that things are not getting delivered. But today, very many things have changed. It's all much more transparent. If it is going to individual, the fund gets transferred to his or her account, isn't it? That changes come about. So whatever that out of 1 rupee, 90 paise or 10 paise is taken away, those days are gone now. Mostly. But if there are funds made available for improvement of cities, how should it be done? Why should it be done? And how best to be done? And how to find more resources I think if we find more resources, probably the directorates will also have a more active role. It's a fact that with the missions and the PIUs and the PMUs and all those things, the directorate's role got diluted.
Right.
And partly the fact is, directorate does not have that type of specialist staff. You remember, Chetan, we used to be dependent on institutions like yours, even to monitor what was happening. It couldn't be done within the ministry, because the same setup, assistant, section officer, under secretary, deputy secretary, like that, there is a certain level of expectation. So that is the thought to be given. I hope Dr. Arjun is listening to this, and focus will come on that as to what is possible and if it can be taken up. I'm sure the participants have their own views. Probably they are not, proactive enough to express their views today or ask questions. So maybe that will happen. But I don't know whether Chetanji or somebody will be available to them to respond to if there are any questions or concerns which need to be addressed. Thank you for this opportunity. I could not resist myself from
that was very useful.
Totally associating with this, this mentality.
Yeah, I think Rhea, we could close this panel discussion. Huh? Thank you so much, everybody.
So a big thank you to all our panelists for your brief but insightful closing remarks. It's been wonderful hearing your perspectives. So now I'd like to propose the vote of thanks. As we come to the close of this insightful session on the role of the Directorate of Municipal Administration and City Governance towards developed urban India 2047, I, Riya Rawat, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, New Delhi, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of the entire IMPRI team. We sincerely thank our distinguished speakers, Professor Chetan Vaidya ji, Professor Debolina Kundu ji, Dr. M. Ramachandran ji, Mr. Sameer Unhale ji, Dr. Purnima Chauhan ji, and Srimati Nancy Sahai ji, and Mr. Tikendra Pawar ji for sharing their valuable insights and experiences. We also thank all our participants and viewers joining us live on various platforms for their engagement and thoughtful questions. If you are watching us later on YouTube or listening to a podcast, we are grateful for your continued support and engagement. We look forward to welcoming you again at our upcoming IMPRI web policy sessions. Wishing you all a very wonderful evening ahead. Thank you and namaskar.
Thank you.